For the past year, I have worked as secretary at an outpatient mental health facility. My official title is support staff, but that's just so therapists can make me do whatever they're too lazy to do. And when I protest that whatever they want me to do is not my job, they can cite that, as support staff, my duties are to support the therapists. I end up doing a lot of things that are definitely not on my task list, like spraying air freshener when the therapist complains that it smells awful in their office. My job really sucks sometimes. A lot of the days are great. Answer phones, check in clients, verify a few insurance policies, routine. Some days, though, are indescribably terrible. Like the days where a client comes in, sobbing, begging me to let them see a therapist, and the therapist doesn't have room in their schedule and there's nothing I can do to get them in. Or the days when a 12-year-old is brought in handcuffs because he won't stop smashing his own head against the wall, and his mother cries softly as he tries to fight his way out of the police officer's grasp. Don't get me wrong, I love my job. As mundane as my tasks sound, it gives me a lot of satisfaction to know that I'm helping clients get the best service they possibly can. Some days just get to me, but most days I clock in at 8, do my job, and clock back out at 5, feeling accomplished and like maybe I helped make a difference, even if it was just by the tiniest amount. Every so often I work the closing shift, from 11 to 8, depending on staff availability, and sometimes I even work 8 to 8, when we're really short-staffed. The only shift I don't regularly work is the opening shift, from 7:30 to 4:30. The opening shift isn't all that bad. It's only half an hour earlier than my normal clock-in time, and the extra tasks are easy. It's a routine that I slip into easily. I unlock the front door, trying to ignore the clients who are desperately trying to slip into the building before we actually open, and turn off the screaming alarm. I turn on the computer and check the voicemail. I meander down the halls, unlocking all the doors. Then I turn on all the lights, and once I'm all logged into the computer, I check my email and load up the security cameras on my second monitor. There are 15 cameras throughout the building, and I have access to all of them. The application that runs all the cameras has several different settings that I can control. I can have all 15 cameras display on my screen at once, but if I do that, they're all tiny and I can't really see what's going on in any of them. You can have one giant screen of just one room, a few large screens and some small screens, and so on. Each secretary has their preference, but personally, I like having 3 larger screens and 4 smaller screens. For the large screens, I always have the 2 main hallways, first floor west and first floor east, and then the main waiting room. For the 4 smaller screens, I have second floor south, first floor north cross hall, first floor center cross hall, and the children's waiting room. In my opinion, these are the areas with the most traffic and, as a result, the most important for me to have a constant eye on. I occasionally click through the other cameras, but I always go back to those main 7. To be perfectly honest, saying I have a constant eye on the cameras is a bit of a stretch. I mainly look at them to make sure therapists have come out to get their clients, or to see which hyperactive child is banging on the children's waiting room door this time. Occasionally, a confused straggler makes it into the building and down the halls, and I have to chase after them and gently guide them outside. But that doesn't happen very often. Mostly, the cameras are a second pair of eyes for me. Every now and then the system will go down and I'll have a blank white screen instead of my usual 7 screens. I feel almost as if I've gone half blind on those days. I'm so used to seeing the cameras out of the corner of my eye that when they're not there I feel apprehensive. As if part of my reality no longer exists because I can't see what's going on down those halls. Dramatic, I know. Anyway, today is one of those rare days where I have to open. My coworker's kid is sick and she has to stay home with him. My other coworker's kids have to be at school at 8, so she can't come in until 8:30 at the earliest. I don't have any kids, so I have the privilege of being volunteered for things, such as covering open shifts. To be honest, today started out weird before I even made it to work. I randomly woke up at 6:45, a full 30 minutes before I have to wake up. I never wake up early. Hell, I barely even wake up on time. I checked my phone for the time and discovered the text from my manager asking me to please come in and open since my coworker wasn't coming in. I groaned. If only I had stayed asleep and had plausible deniability that I hadn't seen that text. But it was too late. I had already seen it, and my conscience wouldn't allow me to pretend like I hadn't. I begrudgingly replied that yes, I could open, and dragged myself out of bed for a quick shower. I made it to work before 7:30. The day already had an eerie feel to it. Fall is officially here, and this is the first time this season that I've been awake early enough to experience the thick grayness right before the sun breaks through the clouds. There was only one other car in the parking lot attendants, and the street, though dead to the world, was full of construction workers tearing out the cement. They've been replacing the sidewalks on our street for months, and they finally made their way to our portion of the street. I ignored their gaze as they watched me walk into the building, instead choosing to stare at the large excavator that has lived in front of the main entrance to the building for the past few days. Its lights blinked dimly in the grayness of the morning, and despite the chaos surrounding it, it seemed oddly out of place, like a sense of heaviness and the flight of activity encompassing it. I unlocked the front door, the rhythm of the flashing light matching the pulsating of my blossoming headache. The familiar ringing of the alarm greeted me as I pushed through the foyer door. I quickly shut it off and made my way to the fishbowl. The fishbowl is what we call the area where the secretaries sit. 3 out of the 4 walls are all windows, and everybody, inside the building or out, can see what we're doing at all times. Thus, the fishbowl. I put my things down at my desk, checked the voicemail, cringing at the awful squeak from the fishbowl door. I grabbed the master keys hanging from the hook in the cabinet and made my way down the hall, using the Allen wrench from my key ring to turn on the lights. I worked my way through the east hall and headed towards the west hall, back in the direction of the fishbowl. I stopped short at the end of the hall. The air was thick, heavy almost, as if I could reach out and tangibly grasp it. I peered down the hall trying to see something, though I'm not sure what I thought I might see, since I hadn't yet turned on the lights for that hall. That eerie feeling climbed up my spine, making itself at home at the base of my skull, now roommates with my pounding headache. My heart was pounding my chest, though I wasn't sure why. There was no discernible danger, it was just a dark hall. I struggled to get the Allen wrench into the slot, and it was a few shaky moments before light flooded the hall and I saw nothing. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding and laughed at how ridiculous I was acting. I hummed as I walked down the hall, content to be back in my routine. All the lights were on and I felt safer. I ran my hand across each door as I passed, a nervous habit that weirdly made me feel more secure as each wooden panel glided into my fingertips. I was about halfway down the hall when I noticed the office door to my left was open. Barely open, but open nonetheless. Beyond the small crack, I could only see darkness. I pushed the door open just a bit, and then lost my nerve and pulled the door shut with a snap. I shivered and started walking back to the fishbowl as quickly as possible. See, this was weird for a number of reasons. For one, I was alone in the building. Only the parking lot attendant was here, and she was definitely outside. Secondly, whoever closes the night before is supposed to make sure all the doors are locked before they leave. If they leave any unlocked, housekeeping emails our manager and rats us out. Thirdly, I had the master keys, so no one else could have unlocked the door. But the weirdest part was that the office belonged to Alice. Well, I guess it had belonged to Alice. She was the therapist who was fired last week, or she quit last week. She both quit and was fired, if that could make any sense. She called after lunch one day and said she was sick and wouldn't be coming back that afternoon. That was the last we heard from her. She didn't answer any of our calls, never called to let us know what was going on, and didn't respond to any outreaches from the higher-ups in human resources. When we checked her office, we found all of her stuff still there, save for the family photos she had hanging on the wall. We had to chase off the other therapists who wanted to claim the lamps, beanbags, chairs, and the rest of her office decorations. Eventually, we just accepted that she wasn't coming back and reassigned all of her clients. It was a mess. But that means there's no reason her office door should have been open. I slid into the fishbowl and looked at the clock on the wall. 7:36. It would be at least another 10 minutes before anyone else showed up. That shouldn't matter, though. I've opened numerous times before, and I was alone all of those times. There was nothing to indicate that I was in any danger. Just an inexplicable open door of a fired employee that no one has heard from in over a week. Everything's fine. Deep breaths, I told myself. I sat down at my desk and loaded up the security cameras, rubbing the goosebumps from my arms as I waited. The screen filled with 15 different screens. I rolled my eyes, annoyed that the secretary from last night had changed the camera settings for my custom one. I clicked my preferred setting layout and went about dragging the cameras I wanted into the slots. I checked all 15 cameras mostly out of habit, since I was the only one here. Parking lot, main entrance, lobby, stairwell, second floor south, second floor north, second floor west, Wait, what was that? I clicked back to second floor west. The lights on that floor aren't turned on until the clinical supervisor gets here, since he's the only therapist with an office up there. Every hall should be dark right now, but the screen I was staring at reflected an empty hallway, illuminated by a red glow. The red glow showcased a figure standing at the end of the hallway. I swallowed dryly. There was no possible way anyone else could be in the building. I had the keys. The front door was still locked. I was alone. I had to be alone. My heart threatened to beat right out of my chest. I wanted to call the police, do something. But my fight or flight failed me and I was stuck. I could hear my own shaky breathing as, instead of reaching for the phone, I reached for the mouse and enlarged the camera. The red glow filled my screen and the figure at the end of the hall loomed larger. I stared for another second before a wave of relief crashed over me, and I began laughing uncontrollably. The figure at the end of the hall was a fire extinguisher. I stared at the fuzzy dark figure for a second more and confirmed that, yes, it was just the fire extinguisher at the end of the hall. I remembered that there was an exit sign at the end of the second floor west, which was obviously what was causing the red glow. I breathed out slowly, feeling the weight that was compressing my chest release. Feeling relieved, I turned my attention to my email. There were 5 emails, 3 of which were about job postings within the company. One was from my manager, asking me to cover more late-night shifts, and the 5th was for maintenance. I opened up the maintenance one, ready to delete it like all the other emails. My heart stopped. Good morning. Just a little note to let you know that maintenance team removed all the fire extinguishers from the halls early this morning. There was a recall on the majority of the ones we had hanging up there, so the higher-ups just had us replace them all. There's still one located by the front desk and one by the south stairwell. We will be back with all the new fire extinguishers later this afternoon. Thanks for bearing with us. I cringed as the awful squeaking from the fishbowl door sounded behind me. But I was alone. I had to be alone.